Hello, welcome to another video where today I'm talking about mistakes. So, as humans, we naturally, make mistakes. It's, a common thing of, humanity. No one has ever, not made a mistake, everyone makes mistakes. But as long as you learn and grow from those mistakes, that's all part of being, human. But I feel like these days people are so overcritical over, mistakes, too judgmental over mistakes, never giving, people a second chance, which, I always try to, like to do, give people second chances. I made my own mistakes. Yeah, again, I mentioned this before, but my failure with, X Gene, leaving them when I should have been, a friend and, a rock of stability because they were not going for, good days. By the time I was just too young and afraid that I was a coward and ran away. I just, left them. I hope, they found others to support them. I mean, I know there was at least one. So, yeah. So, but nonetheless, it doesn't, negate that it was, a mistake. You know, I'm just, saying, the facts as they, are, you know, not trying, absolve me of anything. uh, anyway, and obviously X Gene wasn't the only one, Elsie and Joker, but both of those, are coin flips. Never really knew what happened after, but nonetheless, I still have regrets because I always think of the worst rather than the best. And even, of late, had the question if I made mistakes with a certain friend. I feel like I didn't, but I can never be too certain. But maybe I'm overthinking it, or maybe, could be right in the money. I have no idea. Given it's a confusing case, because life just seems to get strange as time goes on. Things seem to be more and more broken, like diluted, and I don't know. Nothing makes sense anymore. And I'm just trying to, make sense of things, but sometimes, what happens is that you drown in the senselessness that life has become such pointless conflict. But anyway, everyone makes, mistakes. I've, made my handful of mistakes through my life and, don't want to repeat and forever will, try to atone. I mean, it's one of the reasons I do talk topics like this, because I think it's important, and, it's at least a small way to make up for things. But then again, I'll never be satisfied, so I'll always be trying to make up for, mistakes of the past. I guess, though, at least that's a good thing in a weird way. I'll never be, satisfied to leave things be as they are, as some people would just be like, that's enough. So, always for me, I have to go the extra mile. So, yeah, if more people went the extra mile, maybe things wouldn't be so bad as they are. Because I might be crazy, but at least my craziness, means I have a lot of determination and persistence. Can the same be said for the rest of the world? Who knows? Either way, I always do my thing in atonement. But yeah, mistakes are a huge part of, we have mistakes and successes. It's always, that balance. We got to own up to, our mistakes, make up for them, atone for them, whatever for them, whatever it takes, I suppose. And yeah, but yeah, either way, mistakes are mistakes. I guess there's not a lot else to say than, people make mistakes, I'll try and forever, make up for mine. And people shouldn't be so critical over mistakes, people make mistakes. Don't always be so hard on people. If it's a time to be hard on, mistakes, then obviously be hard. But if it's going too far, ease back a bit, Nothing needs to be perfect. Yeah, again, I've talked about perfection before, and, people seeking perfection only leads to a inevitable, downfall to, try and keep up a perfect image. Like, it's very self-destructive, perfection, so, don't be, too hard upon yourself or others. There's a time to be hard, and there's a time to, ease back a bit. And hopefully, you should know when which is, and it's a time to, scrutinize the mistakes, or a time to just, let the mistake be there, I suppose. so that the person that made the mistake can, sort of linger on the mistake and, think over it and hopefully come to, the conclusion that they need to fix it. And if they don't, that's when you step in and, push them in the right direction. Like, if they're not going to own up to it, like, that's when, you push. But pushing isn't always necessary. And things can be complicated in life, so it's kind of up to, judgment in the moment. Hopefully, people won't let, emotions completely dictate them. But also, logic can also be equally as detrimental. So don't be either or. But sometimes you do have to be emotional or logical. And life is complicated, so it's a balance between many, many different things, many aspects, both emotional, logical, and wherever else when it comes to your mistakes. You really just have to find that, fine line of balance. And sure, you won't be perfect, but, that's, being human. No one's perfect. No one needs to be perfect. But I do think it's key that we all try harder these days and try and, make others, see, it too. Otherwise, well, things are just going to get worse. Things will only get worse, before they get better if we don't do something. And, again, I think, the time is now. We always have to fight. If we sit forever in our comfortable lives doing nothing, what will come? That's why I choose to, talk about it. Because sure, it's going to be hard, probably physically do some things. Like, it's not like I can instantly go change the minds of everyone. But at least talking about it might convince people to change their minds or, think about things. So it's my way of fighting. And that's why, again, I wish more YouTubers would do the same, talk about these serious topics, because it hardly happens enough. It hardly happens enough. Until it starts happening more, I feel worse. I feel worse. I guess, entertainers will always prefer entertainment, hiding from conflict than fighting. To wish dads, a hard task. At least I try to keep a sort of balance between the two. Have a balance between this and, entertainment stuff. So this stuff is, done, each, every now and then, to continue to fight. So, at the very least, I don't think this talk topic is a mistake. This is the one thing that I feel like is no mistake. And, hopefully can help. But I think I've rambled long enough. Hopefully the pointers get across. Hopefully, people understand what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'm just speaking, nonsense, but I don't think so. Either way, back to, main topic. Mistakes will always be present, no matter what, no matter where, no matter when. What matters is you atone, make up for them, and try not to repeat mistakes. Unfortunately, I did that, sometimes it takes, the final, nail in the coffin to understand fully. So, don't always blame people if they don't learn the first time. Some people are slow at learning. Sometimes quite literally. Yeah, again, my type of autism is PDDNOS. Literally one that makes me learn slower. So, understanding things isn't always easy. So, you gotta try and, carefully pass upon understanding. Yeah, again, one or two things, kindness and understanding. So you need to pass on the understanding in a way that it's truthfully understood, so that people, don't repeat mistakes or whatever. You gotta be firm, but also gentle, kind but strict. You gotta be many things in life. And it's, hard to be a leader. Sometimes you just gotta take charge and lead. If no one else is willing to step up to, the plate, who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? You could do it. I hope and believe that things can get better. Anyway, and I think I've babbled long enough, so yeah. This will be it for the talk topic today. hope this, was informative, and, just think about, your mistakes as a person. And if you think you have no mistakes, you're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself. Either way, peace, thank you, and goodbye.